Now, London recently played host to a major international book fair, and it's no surprise the capital is the latest gathering, the latest setting, I should say, for another literary gathering. The 9th annual Asia House Literature Festival, the UK's only event exclusively dedicated to Pan-Asian writing, kicks off today, and it promises to be even bigger and better than before. Nobel laureates, debut novelists and Man Booker Prize winners will be rubbing shoulders with the public and book lovers alike. Well, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio by the festival manager, Jemimah Steinfeld, and the Canadian writer, Heidi Kingstone, whose memoirs about her time in Afghanistan, Dispatches from the Kabul Cafe, is due to be published in May. A very good morning to all of you. I mean, the timing's perfect, isn't it? Because we've just had the London Book Fair, so now we can have this festival, so it's like a really smooth transition, isn't it?
Exactly, and we time it in that way where we time it in between the London Book Fair and before Hay, so we kind of get that, like, that magical middle ground when book lovers are thinking, well, what can I do? Where can I go? And we're there.
Do you think that Asian literature is a neglected commodity in the West, that we probably have a very general idea about it, but not enough?
I think that's 100% correct. Particularly at the moment, there are lots of conversations going on about how, particularly in the UK, the industry is still very much dominated by certain writers, certain storylines that are predominantly kind of the white British storyline. And so we really try to raise the profile of these wonderful stories. From that, I would say it's a bit more complicated. There are certain countries that receive a lot more attention. For example, there's a lot of books that come out of India that we're very familiar with, a lot of Indian writers. China probably after that in Asia, but what about all the other countries? What's coming out of Afghanistan? What's coming out of Indonesia? There are so many wonderful, wonderful voices, and we really want to put a platform.
And this is the problem, isn't it, that because people are familiar with certain countries, I suppose it gives Westerners a very stilted view of the Asian literature scene.
100%. I mean, I think in the UK, when people say Asia, they instantly think, either they think South Asia, India and Pakistan, or they think China. And so they have this, they go to these kind of, you know, Salman Rushdie, etc., and then after that they're slightly stumped and they don't know where to look. So we want to show them that these are great writers that they're thinking of, but there's so many more wonderful writers.
So broaden your taste, which is where Heidi comes into this, because you are a journalist.
I am.
And you spent a few years living in Afghanistan, and of course it's all captured in this fascinating memoir that you've written, Dispatches from the Kabul Cafe. I mean, the Kabul Cafe, was it, as it appears in the title, this amazing cafe, it attracted all the expats?
Well, actually, there were one of the things that I wanted to write about was that there was this whole world that had come up after 2001. So there wasn't a Kabul Cafe per se, but there was the Flower Street Cafe, there were a number of other places, and that just sort of stuck as a title. But there were places, that absolutely people would go all the time.
And it's fascinating because when we think about Afghanistan, our view is that this is a land that is wrapped in conflict. The idea that you actually had a flourishing community.
Absolutely.
And this contradiction as well that you have women who in public were covered,
yep, but
behind closed doors, they were very much like Western women.
The Afghan women, that's, I think, a different scene, but there were certainly a lot of Afghan, particularly young women who were just amazing. And I write about this one woman called Hasina, who ordered her Gucci glasses from, Milan. But
as one does.
As one does. But she had been an activist since the age of 10. And then another fantastic character was the cleaner called Dunya, who just used to come to the house, no interest in cleaning, shut the doors to the living room and then just danced to Bollywood TV, movies, and it was fantastic. So it was just an amazing slice of life.
So you had to clean your own apartment, basically.
I spent a lot of time looking for things.
Right, okay then. So she wasn't so much cleaning apartments, but she was rearranging things and at the same time dancing to the tracks from Bollywood movies.
And, and because of the sisterhood, we supported her.
But I mean, in a way, you've actually opened up Afghanistan to a wider audience. That's certainly what you're in the process of doing with this book.
I hope so, because there's been so many great books written on Afghanistan, from the Kite Runner to military and, political histories, etc. And this was just a slice of life that I thought was somewhat different. I guess I had been inspired by Graham Greene's The Quiet American, which took place, in Vietnam. And I wanted something that sort of captured those louche days, because really that community is more or less, the height has gone.
Sure. Is that the thing which attracted you to the book, because of this other side to Afghanistan, the complete contradiction?
Yeah, definitely. It was really interesting to hear this story where it was, I think, you know, in Afghanistan you hear about war people, war soldiers returning, you hear about the oppression of women, you get these kind of common tropes, but it doesn't tell you entirely what life is really like to live there. And I myself have a background where I'd lived in China for 3 years and have written about China. And again, it was a similar thing of there are these stories that you often hear, the oppression, the censorship, but then life is quite different on the ground. And it's not to say that these aren't aspects, and Heidi picks up on them in her book too, that, you know, some of the cliches we hear, there are truth to them, but there's so much more. And I don't think we're entirely engaging and understanding Asia if we just go to the kind of the common messages.
But it must have been very hard for you as well, leaving Afghanistan, because you obviously made quite a few friends there. You were very observational about what was happening. It's all captured in the book. So was it painful when you had to turn your back?
It was. I mean, I went for the first time in 2007, stayed 4 months, and then for the next 2.5 years, all I could think about was going back. So I went back for a year, and then I made a decision that I couldn't spend the rest of my life there, unfortunately. So yes, it was painful to leave, and I have still great friends there, and still people who I met who are now all over the world who I keep in touch with.
Sure. So that's the payoff, really, these marvellous friendships.
And the fantastic memories of being in Afghanistan. It was just, you know, an incredible privilege.
Now, listen, time is going against us, but we will look out for the book. It comes out in May, and the festival kicks off very briefly.
So it kicks off, there's a big event tonight, and then the main events are from the 7th till the 18th of May.
Lovely.
And we have the themes of youth and gender, so lots of conversations.
Okay, so we'll look out for it there. But ladies, thank you so much. You're watching This Day Live on the Rise News.